Chapter 4 Collateral Damage. When a scandal like this erupts, the damage rarely stays contained between the people at the center of it. Relationships ripple outward. Friendships crack under pressure. People who had nothing to do with the original betrayal suddenly find themselves forced to choose sides in a conflict they never asked to be a part of. That's exactly what happened within the fan group surrounding Vanderpump Rules, and perhaps no one embodied that complicated emotional crossfire more than Scheana Shay. For years, Scheana had maintained relationships with nearly everyone involved in the scandal. She had a complicated but real friendship with Ariana Madix. She had long-standing ties to Tom Sandoval, and at one point, she had even tried to mentor and support Rachel Leviss. Scheana had been there when Rachel was navigating her breakup with James Kennedy. She had defended her in conversations with the rest of the group. She had tried in her own way to help Rachel find her footing in the chaotic world of the show, which made what happened next feel almost surreal. We get to the night that everything broke. When the affair between Sandoval and Rachel became public, the news hit the cast like a shockwave. No one had prepared for it. According to several cast accounts, Scheana was among the first to hear the details. She had been close to Ariana for years, and when the truth emerged, her reaction was immediate and emotional. What followed had been debated endlessly online, dissected in interviews, and argued about across social media. Rachel claimed that Scheana physically assaulted her after learning about the affair. Scheana denied it, but the fallout was immediate. Rachel filed for a temporary restraining order against Scheana, accusing her of physical aggression during the confrontation. Suddenly, the scandal had expanded beyond the affair itself. Now, there was a legal component to this. For the cast of Vanderpump Rules, who were preparing to film the season 10 reunion, the situation created an almost impossible logistical nightmare. Two cast members who were supposed to appear on stage together were now legally required to stay a specific distance apart. The production had to get creative, and Rachel appeared at the reunion remotely. Scheana sat on stage with the rest of the cast, emotionally exhausted, defending herself against accusations she insisted were false. It was one of the most bizarre moments in the show's history for the emotional toll. For Scheana, the experience seemed to be deeply painful. She wasn't just dealing with the scandal as a viewer or a commentator, she was living inside of it. On one side was Ariana, one of her closest friends, someone she had stood beside for years. On another side was Rachel, someone she had once tried to support and encourage. And in the middle was a legal accusation that threatened her reputation. What made the situation even more complicated was the emotional context. Scheana had been one of the loudest voices defending Ariana after the affair became public. Her loyalty was clear, but the restraining order forced her into a different kind of spotlight. Suddenly, the narrative around the scandal wasn't just about the betrayal anymore. It was about violence. It was about legal consequences, about conflicting stories. And the internet, as always, had opinions. Some fans believed Rachel completely. Others dismissed the accusation outright. Many simply watched the drama unfold like any another chapter in a show that had always thrived on chaos. But for the people involved, this wasn't just television anymore. This was their real lives. As for filming for the next season began, the cast found themselves navigating a social environment that had become almost impossible to manage. The friend group that had once shared vacations, parties, and late-night conversations was now fractured. Lines had been drawn. Ariana's circle, particularly Katie Maloney, stood firmly by her side. Katie's support for Ariana was unwavering and in many ways admirable. She had watched her friend endure public humiliation, and she had no interest in extending sympathy to the man responsible for it. But at times, that fierce loyalty seemed to amplify the hostility surrounding Scandoval. Scenes during the following season often felt less like conversations and more like confrontations. And in the middle of all of it stood someone who arguably had the most uncomfortable position in the entire group. For Tom Schwartz, the scandal created an emotional trap. Schwartz had been Sandoval's closest friend for over a decade. Their partnership wasn't just personal, it was professional. They co-owned businesses together. They had built entire stories around their friendship. But Schwartz also cared about Ariana. He had spent years socializing with her, filming with her, and watching her relationship with Sandoval from the inside. When the affair came to light, Schwartz found himself in a position that many viewers struggled to empathize with, but that was deeply real. He was expected to condemn his best friend publicly, and when he didn't do strongly enough for some members of the group, the backlash came quickly. Ariana herself expressed frustration with Schwartz during parts of season 11. At times, it seemed like she viewed his attempts to remain loyal to Sandoval as a personal betrayal. But from another perspective, Schwartz was facing a question that most people eventually encounter in their lives. What do you do when someone you love makes a terrible mistake? Do you abandon them or do you stay? The internet tends to prefer simple answers. Real life rarely provides them. By the time the camera stopped rolling on the next season, the friend group looked very different from the one viewers had watched for years. Some relationships were permanently damaged, others had been strained but survived, and some, like the complicated dynamic between Scheana, Ariana, and Sandoval, remained emotionally unresolved. The scandal had begun as a betrayal between three people, but its aftermath reveals something deeper about the nature of friendship, loyalty, and public judgment. And when millions of strangers are watching your life unfold in real time, every decision becomes amplified, every mistake becomes permanent, and every relationship becomes fragile. Because the world of in reality television, the cameras may eventually stop rolling, but the internet never stops watching.